What's up, everybody? It's the Mad Hatter. And you're watching another episode of the Mad Hatter's Puzzle. Today I wanted to dedicate this episode to George Floyd and just kind of give some thoughts and some, I guess, perspective on everything that has been transpiring and going on over the course of the past, week and a half. A lot of people have been talking to me, have been sharing their thoughts with me about what's been going on with the situation, and I felt compelled over the course of the past week to say something regarding the situation in its entirety. I've been mulling over it too, because I kind of felt like I don't know. I think the words I want to use are, I didn't think it was my place to speak on it, to say anything about it, but I'll explain kind of where that's coming from in a little bit. But what I want to try to do today overall is to just kind of give some personal perspective on what's been happening, talk about some of the nuances of the racial tensions here in America, talk about the responses that we've seen, the protesting, the riots, and talk about some of the responses from all peoples, black, white, purple, pink, and also talk about what we can further do to try to make things better than they have been in the past. And so that's kind of what I want to do today. I don't know how much I'm going to be able to get through it all. If you do have any questions or comments, I'm pretty much just going to leave it wide open. Give me 1 second. I'm going to try to fix it over here. Oh, okay. If you have any questions or comments that you want to add, if there's anything you want to know regarding the situation, by all means, fill it out, and I'll try to answer them as best as I can. What I said I want to do today is I want to kind of get my thoughts out there, the things that are puzzling me, using the line, talk about the things that I'm thinking about for about a good 45 minutes to an hour, and then just kind of leave my live on in the second hour to just kind of let y'all talk to me and tell me whatever it is that you feel is on your mind, so that way it can be an open dialogue. And so what I want to do first is just kind of talk about the situation. Before I do that, before I talk about the situation, I kind of want to talk about my perspective of my existence, basically, to kind of give a backdrop of how I dealt with, or how I responded to what happened in Minneapolis. So I grew up, for lack of a better way of putting it, I grew up in a rather privileged situation despite being black. And what I mean by that is, although I knew I was black, I've always known that although I have, was raised in a black home, both my parents are black, my whole family's black, I never felt the impact of being black, like some of my, my black brothers and sisters have. Me growing up, I was a part of, very special programs where I ended up being, basically the black person in an all-white group, for lack of a better way of putting it. I was in the gifted classes, the smart classes, growing up, and from what I could tell, I was one of the group. I was one of the crowd. I was never shunned for being black. I was never, never really faced, anything about blackness until maybe the fourth grade, where right at the beginning of the school year, there was this guy who, called me a burnt marshmallow, and he was picking on me, and he wanted to beat me up every day. I told my mom and dad, and they, took it to the principal. They had a conference, and that kid was never seen again until later on in high school. I think they sent him off to military school or something like that, and we were cool. He forgot the whole situation. I'd forgotten about the situation when we met up in high school. But outside of that, and one teacher in the 6th grade who treated me differently than everybody else because of my race. At the time, I thought she just wanted me to have a hard time in school. I didn't know she was really trying to do me wrong. But outside of those two experiences, I never really had any racial biases among my peers, within the community, amongst whites, teachers, principals, whatever. I felt like pretty much everybody else. Like, I didn't feel like I was inferior, or felt like I was less than, or felt like I was being put on a pedestal as a token. Like, I never felt that experience. When I went off to college, went to FAMU, that was my first experience of being immersed in an all-black situation. Again, because most of my classes back in high school and middle school and even elementary school, I was majority white. I was basically like the one or two black kids in the class, and so it was a very different experience for me to be at FAMU, to be immersed with so many, black people, so many of my folk, in the same place, and so that was an experience that I'm glad that I had. It didn't really matter for me whether I was at an HBCU or traditionally white school. It was pretty much the same thing. Like, I just felt like I was at home no matter where I went. Going through my work experiences, again, never really had a racial issue. I always knew and was aware of and knew that racial things were happening, but for me, I never felt the brunt force of it. And I couple that with my parents are both law enforcement. My first stepdad was law enforcement. My dad, my biological father, he's military. My mom, she was law enforcement. She was law enforcement. My current stepdad, who I consider my dad, but he's law enforcement. And so I've always had dealings with law enforcement. I've never had any clashes with them in a negative way. If I got in trouble, it was because I was in trouble. Like, I either sped or I ran into something, or but I never had a situation where I felt like I had to clinch up because they were looking at me a different way, or they felt something was wrong with me in some type of way. And so my experiences with law enforcement have always been positive, in the sense that I've never felt like I was being profiled because of my skin color. And I guess credit that to the VPD, credit that to all the law enforcement people that I've dealt with. Again, I can't speak for everyone's experiences. I can only speak for mine, in that I've never had a negative experience with law enforcement. I don't know whether it's because my parents were law enforcement and they knew my parents, and so I don't really know. But I do know that I've never had a negative experience with the police. But it doesn't mean that I am not aware of all of the situations and all the circumstances that have taken place in a lot of people's lives. And it also doesn't diminish the impact that I feel when I've seen countless situations like George Floyd, like Tamir Rice, like Alton Sterling, like Philando Castile, like Sandra Bland, like Eric Garner, like Tamir Rice. Like I've seen and I felt the pain and the tension and the issues that have come with countless times where I'm seeing, black and brown bodies, becoming lifeless over meaningless things, over things that, our white counterparts, wouldn't necessarily have to deal with at that same magnitude. When you see that, that you have a person who shot up an entire church and he's still alive, but you have a person who, was just walking, just running, jogging down the street, and he gets shot for no reason. I had felt that 2016 when Alton Sterling, Philando Castile, and then the incident that happened in Dallas, Texas. When that happened, that it hurt me to my core, and it was hurtful because it was not just because of what happened, but then that very same week, there was an incident that occurred in Valdosta where there was a guy who purposefully did something to get police to come so that he could die by cop. He pulled out a weapon, and the cops didn't shoot him. They subdued him, but that's what he meant to do. And there was a lot of tension in the air because they thought, oh no, Dallas is happening here now. So there was a lot of tension there. And then later on that same week, I had a guy who came over my house, as a white guy, and he was, trying to sell some school materials to our kids for summer school. And he rode a bicycle through the neighborhood to get to our house. And after he was done with us, we didn't buy anything from him, but he walked outside and his bike was gone. And I remember being afraid to call the cops because I felt there was a tension in my heart based upon everything that was happening, that it's possible that the cops might blame me for the bike being stolen. And so we called them. They were fine. They wrote up the report. They went looking for the bicycle. They found it. I took him to the location where the bike was. Some little dumb kid in the neighborhood who saw a free bike and wanted to go ride it, and the rest is history for that. But I just remember feeling that apprehension because I knew that at any given moment they may misinterpret this whole situation and think that I'm the guy, or that my wife is the girl, or my kids are the kids who stole this person's bike. And I just remember feeling the weight of that. And so when I saw what happened, so that's my experience in a nutshell. And so I'm bringing all this up to now talk about Minneapolis. But I want to put Minneapolis against the backdrop of everything else that's happened over the course of time, where you had, again, Sandra Bland and Eric Garner and Trayvon Martin, Tamir Rice, Philando Castile, Alton Sterling, now George Floyd. Before that, Breonna Taylor. Before that, there was another person who got shot. Althea or Altali, I can't remember her name. I'm not finna butcher it right now. But against that backdrop, all of these people who have been senselessly murdered, executed, killed, whatever you want to call it, senselessly by law enforcement. When George Floyd was killed, when I first heard about the story, I first heard about the incident, and this, again, I'm just being honest with y'all. When I heard the story and I heard what happened, my initial reaction to the incident was, oh, another one. And I glossed over it. And I did that because it felt like a movie that I'd already seen and don't care to watch again. Because this is not the first incident that's taken place. Like, this has been happening for countless generations. To see someone innocently killed over nothing, over absolutely nothing. Like, he was already in handcuffs. There was no reason to lay him on the ground. There was no reason to put a knee to the neck. There was no reason to have him subdued in that way. He was already in police custody. To see the multitude of cops that were there who didn't say anything, they didn't have, they didn't try to stop him. They just sat and watched. We don't know all the nuances behind law enforcement and how they are trained to do this, that, and the third, but I'm not here to argue none of that because, again, there was no reason for it to even have gotten to that point where you've got your knee on a guy's neck. But again, the same thing can be said about there's no sense in having chased this dude down and you shoot him behind his back. He's got his hands up. He's saying, I don't have a weapon, I don't have a gun, but you shoot him anyway. And then try to claim it was self-defense. You felt afraid for your life. No reason that a guy had to be chased down in a neighborhood when he's just jogging and inspecting a house that's unfinished. No reason to hunt him down and have him shot and killed. There's no reason, that Sandra Bland had to go through what she went through. No reason why Tamir Rice playing with toy guns had to be gunned down himself. There's no reason, why Alton Sterling or Philando Castile, neither one of them had to die those days for no reason whatsoever. And so, after having seen and watched and heard story after story after story of what had happened, like, my initial reaction to George Floyd dying was, oh, another one. And, I'm not afraid to admit it because, like, I've seen this movie before. I've seen this movie way too many times. And for me, at this point last week, I felt like it was just going to be another story that gets swept up under the rug because of everything else that's going on in life. And, the cops are going to get, a reprimand. They're going to get a slap on the wrist. I was surprised when all four of them got fired. I was surprised when they locked Buddy up and charged him with murder. I was surprised when, the DA, got changed and changed to a different DA who's trying to pursue all four of them now. Like, all those things started surprising me because, again, I'm not used to seeing that as part of the story. But even in all of that, I was still saying to myself, okay, but now what? He's gonna, they're gonna get off in some type of way, and they're gonna, be able to, get away from the charges or whatever, and it's gonna be what it's gonna be, and we're just gonna move on with life because that's how this story plays out. No one's gonna make a whole bunch of noise about it. The riots start. Not the riots. Let me back up. Put the timeline together. The protests then begin, and I'm again okay. Protests are happening. Whoop-de-doo. All right, yay, they're happening again, just like the last ones happened before. They're gonna have their protests. They're gonna say their speeches. They're gonna use their platforms, and then it's gonna dissipate. And no one's going to care ever again. This is going to be the same old stuff that it's always been. I've seen this movie before. Then the riots start. They burn down Target. They burn down the police station. They burn down all these stores and things like that. And I said to myself, okay, that's great. Now the story is not going to be about George Floyd and the fact that he was murdered, but now it's going to be about the riots. And how people, always burning stuff down, and how, they're never able to, take care of anything because every time they get something, they tear it up, they trash it apart. And now that's going to be the story. It's not going to be about how everybody's trying to consolidate and be good and be one and, try to, speak up for this guy. No, it's now going to be about the riots. And so it's like, I've seen this movie before. I know this is where it's going to go, and it's just going to be what it's going to be. So, much to my surprise and joy and hope, all of a sudden, it's like everybody and their grandma woke the frick up. and they saw and they realized we can't keep allowing this to happen. And the more I saw it, the more I wanted to like cry and run away and hide, because I've never seen the United States of America, let alone the world, consolidate the way that we have to stand up and say enough is enough. And it shocked the crap out of me because I've never seen this happen before. Now, I had friends that I talked to earlier this week who said that these kind of things have happened all the time, and so for it's just that I live in a bubble world called Valdosta, Georgia, and no one really talks about or deals with things like that on that type of magnitude here in this city. And even if they do, it happens in like smaller waves, and so we don't really get to see the full impact of it the way that we would in some other bigger cities like Atlanta, New York, Miami, LA, Seattle, and the like. But I've never in the history of police brutality, law enforcement issues, racial tensions, never seen the global community rise up the way that y'all have. And because of that, like, my heart has been all over the place. And it's been all over the place because on one hand, and as I'm saying this is the smaller hand, but this is the thought that I've had, so I'm again just sharing my thoughts with y'all. On one hand, I've mulled over the fact that why now? Why now? Like, why not 3 deaths ago? 5 deaths ago? 10 deaths ago? 15 deaths ago? 20 deaths ago? 30 deaths ago? Where were y'all then when all this stuff was going on? We've been telling y'all for decades this stuff was happening, and you never showed up. Not like this. But that was the smaller part of me, because the bigger part of me, and I've told everybody this, the bigger part of me has been saying, welcome to the party. We're so glad that you're here. Thank you for coming. We need your help. And I was telling somebody earlier today, I just feel so overwhelmed because it feels like for the first time since this has happened that I can actually breathe a little bit. I can actually, let someone else take up the mantle and fight for a little while I sit down and breathe. While others sit down and breathe. It's for the first time in a long time that I myself have felt like we actually have some real allies who are not black that will stand up for us and say, this can't continue. This can't happen. This is wrong. People have gotten upset with the NFL, calling them hypocrites because they kicked out Colin Kaepernick, but then here they come talking about we stand with racial, justice and those sort of things. But again, I say, even though I'm mad at how it happened, thank God. Welcome to the party. ESPN. I remember Jamel Smith and Jamel Hill and Michael Smith, being ostracized for voicing their opinions about things. Stephen A. Smith being ostracized for speaking his mind on things that weren't related to sports. People ostracizing him, saying, just stick to sports, stick to what you know. But now all of a sudden, ESPN, the very people who kicked, Jamel Hill and Michael Smith in their teeth when they were trying to stand up for racial justice, are now saying, we stand up for equality and we stand for justice. And I'm saying, I'm mad that it took this, but welcome to the party. We're happy to have you. And so I just have felt this overwhelming sense of joy, of hope, of expectation that maybe this time is the time, that now everybody can see, that everybody can know that this is an issue, and now we can rise up and do something about it beyond just saying some niceties and just whatever the easy path is. And so ever since probably Saturday, I've been torn trying to figure out, what do I do? What do I say? Do I use my platform to try to raise awareness, to try to, help people to see things that they can't see? I see everybody else that are, putting things on, on their pages and, talking about white privilege and talking about racial injustice and talking about how the laws and the systems are set up, with white supremacy in mind and things like that. And my mind is just blown because it's not just black people doing it. It's white folk doing it. And I'm so happy because it's the first time that, in a long time, that I have actually seen this type of camaraderie and unity, among more of us as a whole than I've seen in recent years. And so, again, I know that it's one of those things where it's so nuanced and you're going to ruffle feathers and it's going to make some people upset. But at the same time, it's like, it's about time. It's about time that we've gotten to this point. And so, again, those just kind of some of the thoughts off the top of my head that I needed to get out for a second. And what I want to kind of do now, again, if y'all do have any questions or comments, you can feel free to fill out the comment box below, and I'll try to get to them as much as I possibly can. But what I want to do right now is just kind of open up, kind of a nuanced approach to what we're seeing happening. And again, just kind of give my 2 cents on things. And again, if y'all feel like I'm, being a fool or whatever, by all means, let me know how you're feeling. But I wanted to kind of dig a little deeper into why we're seeing what we're seeing, and have a better understanding of what is happening right now. And so, okay, Cal, listen, thank you so much for trying. I really do appreciate you listening. And so I'm trying to learn some new languages. I haven't quite mastered it just yet. So once I figure that out, maybe you and I can have a conversation one day, my man, to kind of talk about some of these things a little bit more. But I do appreciate you for listening in today. So I asked the question, why now? Why is this happening now? Why are we seeing what we're seeing happen now? And part of the reason that we're seeing what we're seeing now, where people are showing up and showing out in ways that they've never shown up and shown out before, is twofold to me. One, COVID-19. COVID-19 stopped everything in the world. Period. Like, they stopped everything. Sports, they stopped the economy, they stopped work, they stopped everything, and their grandma. Like, everyone's home now. Like, if you're an essential worker, you're still working, but everybody's home. Everybody's home. The entertainment industry's home, singers are home, musicians are home, actors are home. Everybody is home right now. Oh, K-Cal, thank you. I really do appreciate that. And hey, how you doing, husband pediatricians? Good to see you. But everybody's home right now. So that then means that there is nothing else in this world, for the most part, outside of some politicians who will be nameless right now, to distract us from anything. There is nothing in the world to distract us from what's happening right now. So all eyes are on this situation. All eyes are in Minneapolis. All eyes are in Atlanta. All eyes are in New York. All eyes are in Seattle, LA, Miami, and watching this thing unfold. Like, there is nothing else to distract us outside of COVID-19 itself, to distract us from what's happening. So when we see the media giving you wall-to-wall coverage of what's going on, and you can't turn to the sports because the sports people are talking about it. You can't turn to the business folk because the business folk are talking about it. Everybody and their grandma is, unless you're watching Brooklyn Nine-Nine and binge watching it like I do a lot of, nothing else is can distract you from this stuff that's happening. And so now the awareness is there that there is something going on in the world, and I need to pay attention to it because I have nothing else to distract myself from this stuff. You couple that with the protests and the riots that are taking place. Once again, I didn't know that there was a protest happening in my own city. That's how disconnected I was from what was going on. Just about every major city and even minor cities like Valdosta had something going on in relation to what happened in Minneapolis. Now, keep in mind that Minneapolis and New York and Atlanta and LA, they got some policing issues they need to work on right now because clearly they just took things a wee bit too far. And that's a whole nother can of worms that we can talk about another day, kind of ties into what we're talking about today. But because of the protests and because of the riots, the subsequent riots that are happening, blame is not what I'm here to assign, so I don't even say who's really doing what. But the fact that they're happening, it's impacting a lot more people in a way that has never impacted people before. And because of that, the awareness of what has now been coupled for the first time ever, and I'm saying this very dramatically, but for the first time ever, people are asking and answering why. Why are people rioting? Why are people burning down stores? Why are people burning down, police stations? Why are people doing this? No, it's not stopping at the incident. For the first time in a long time, people are actually asking the question, why are they doing this? And now that people know why these things are happening, the awareness and the desire to learn more about the issues and the problems and to try to be part of the solution has blown up exponentially. So again, I quote this scripture all the time. All things work together for the good of them who love the Lord and are called according to his purpose. I'm saddened that this happened, but if you look at the perfect storm that has taken place between people not having anything else to do but to watch the news and to watch their news feeds and to watch the social media outlets, couple that with the fact that people are actually asking the questions, why are they doing this, instead of just saying stop doing this. We have a perfect storm now to where everyone is now interested in trying to figure out how to solve the problems. That's why so many people are now chiming in. That's why we had Blackout Tuesday today, which again overwhelmed my cotton picking mind that so many people were getting involved with that. And then how we're seeing, people putting on their social media pages, links to, the ACLU and the NAACP and doing, so many different things, talking about white privilege and reading books and, all the awareness that's happening right now. My friends talking to me and asking me questions and trying to figure out where my head's at and trying to, get a better understanding of what's going on. We're seeing all these things happen now because there is an awareness that has taken place that's just gone beyond the what. It's beyond the what now when they're asking why. Why is this happening? Why are they doing this? Now, again, I don't want anybody to burn anything down. I like Target. I like my stores. I don't want anyone to be shot with freaking pepper spray and tear gas and rubber bullets unnecessarily. Like, these people are peacefully protesting. What the frick are you doing? You know, going around doing all this stupid stuff just because you can. Like, stop that. But nevertheless, it's raising an awareness that that's unprecedented compared to any other situation that we've seen on such a massive low scale. When you got people in Tokyo, Japan, talking about Black Lives Matter and protesting, like, it don't get any realer than that when you gonna go global now. Like, this is the moment that, you know, that we have been waiting for people to take up this mantle and, you know, and pass the baton and say, hey, look, we got you, we got this, go, take a rest for a minute, we'll fight the battle, and once you've rested up, get back in here, and we're not going to leave you alone, we're not going to leave you hanging, we're in this together. You know, somebody said that to me earlier today, and I almost burst into tears at work, you know, because it's the first time that anyone's ever said that to me. And, you know, again, here I am, you know. So it's like we finally, the awareness has grown to the place where we're actually able to now, people can understand what we've been saying, what we've been talking about, what we've been experiencing, what we've been dealing with for countless generations. And so, you know, it makes my heart so glad, and makes my heart so happy to see that we've turned. I don't know what's going to become of it. I don't know if, you know, once everything opens back up, we're just going to get back to normal, everything going to be the same. I really hope not, because COVID-19 has already changed the world as it is. But I really do believe, and I really do think that it's possible. It's quite possible that we've actually turned a corner for real. And because of the desire to learn more about the systems, and learn more about our history, and learn more about, you know, the suppression and the oppression that we've dealt with, both overt and covert, that it will help us to be able to finally dismantle some of these systems that are in place, so that, you know, Black Lives Matter can be a non-issue, because for real, all lives matter, you know. And so I want to talk now a little bit about some of these about some of the systems and things like that. Again, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to hit that comment box right there below. I'll try to get to them as fast as I can. And again, I just thank y'all for taking the time to listen to this little dude, you know, talk about some stuff. Some people, K-Cal said, I hope this awareness is extensive to everyone. This must be a precedent for the significant changes. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And so, speaking on those significant changes, what a lot of my friends were telling me was that they weren't aware that these systems were designed the way that they are designed. Especially a lot of my white friends were saying that they weren't aware that a lot of these systems were in place the way that they're in place. And so what I want to say, because again, there are a whole lot of people and a whole lot of resources and a whole lot of books that have been written, and they do a much better job than I could ever do to try to explain half this stuff. So I'm not going to try to be no expert or nothing like that. I can only tell you based on what I've read, what I've seen, what I've experienced. Just about every system in America, the economic system, the justice system, the prison system, the education system, the socioeconomic system, all the political system, everything was set up and designed with whiteness in mind. And let me be clear of what I'm trying to say, because I don't want to make it sound like I'm trying to be, you know, a racist or anything like that. So just kind of let me explain it. When we set something up, when we design something, you design it, I design it, or whatever, we bring to the table our own experiences, our own prejudices, our own desires. We bring all those things to the table whenever we set something up. Whether it's overt, covert, we bring these things to the table because we we want to give ourselves the best advantage we can in the system that we create. I often tell people this, that until an issue affects you personally, the likelihood of you doing something about an issue is diminished. Until it affects you personally, until you have a vested interest in the situation, the likelihood of you doing something about said situation is going to be very, very small. And the reason being is not because of anything evil or inherently, destitute in your heart and mind. Hey, babe.
Good night.
Good night. Love you.
Me too.
It's not because we're it's inherently evil or anything like that. I mean, we can get into some spiritual stuff about it, but what I'm saying is, when we design the systems, when we put these things together, we do so in a way that will give us the best advantage in said system. We create it for us with us in mind. Sometimes we will set it up for other people, but again, it's agenda driven. It's agenda driven. So when America was built, when the systems were put in place, they were not put in place with black people, being at the advantage. Everything was at a disadvantage for blacks. It's just the nature of the beast, and it's the nature of who was in power at the time and what was going on at the time. When America was built, slavery was in full effect, and so everything, all the levers that were being pulled and all the systems that were put in place were to do so in order to keep that cash flowing and to keep blacks where they were. When slavery was abolished, they came up with the 13th Amendment, which allowed incarcerated persons to still be used as slave labor of sorts. And so a lot of our black and brown people were arrested so that way they could keep that slave force going under the guise of prison labor. Segregation and Jim Crow, same type deal. Systems put in place to keep people, to keep the haves having and the have-nots not having. Again, it's just the way that's the way that it was. And so, when you have systems that are put in place that put other people, that put folk like me at a disadvantage just by virtue of being born black, it makes it difficult to overcome those obstacles that were put in place. It's not like they were put in place to put us at a disadvantage in an overt way, but those things are put in place to put us at a disadvantage nonetheless. And those are the things that we've been struggling to fight and to overcome. When you have politicians who know the boundary lines, so that way they know how to manipulate voting, so that way they can stay in office, or that the black vote can count less compared to the white vote. When you have law enforcement officers who are being trained to see certain things and to profile people in a certain way, so that way when they're walking down the street, they know to hone in on this person compared to that, a black person versus a white person. When you have so many different prejudices that are working against you in the workforce, where you have to overcome so many more obstacles just by virtue of being black. Certain couple of jobs that I've had, like I was up for promotions and didn't get the promotion compared to the white person who didn't have the experience, who didn't have the clout, who didn't have the credentials, but they bypassed me not once, not twice, but 3 times over. Those systems are in place, and they are in place at our disadvantage. So when we say Black Lives Matter, or when anyone says Black Lives Matter, it's not an indication that, black lives matter more than other lives. And I hate when people bring up the all lives matter argument, because that's not what we're saying. That's not what anyone who believes in the message of Black Lives Matter is talking about. What they're saying is, until black lives are on the same footing as white lives, until all lives are on the same footing, we need to concentrate on the black lives and figure out how to get them on that equal footing with the white lives. And again, it's not saying that we don't care about white folk. It's not saying we don't care about Indian or Asian or anything like that. So again, it's not to say that when we say this that we're saying that we only care about blacks. No, that's not the case. What we're saying is these systems have been in place for generations and have kept us at a disadvantage in so many ways, including our law enforcement systems and our prison systems that are making it much more difficult for us to rise above and to be seen, as people and not just, skin and bone, until those systems are fixed, changed, dismantled, built back up, stronger than what they were before. We need to concentrate on, black lives. Again, it's not to say that all lives don't matter. That's not what anyone is saying. That's not what anyone who's ever brought it up has said. It's just like someone had said, they gave two good examples of this. They said one example was, if you're at a breast cancer rally and they're talking about breast cancer, you're not going to get in the breast cancer rally and get on a megaphone and say, all cancer matters. We all know that all cancer matters. And so, it's not to say, at this point, we're just saying that at this rally, we're talking about breast cancer today. We're not saying that all cancer doesn't matter. It's just that you're at a breast cancer rally, or we're dealing with breast cancer. You're not going to get on a breast cancer website and say all cancer matters. You're not going to say, you're not going to say, testicular cancer matters more, or, bone cancer matters more, or leukemia matters more. No, it's just that at this website, today, we're breast cancer. This is what it is. Another example somebody gave was, it's like going to a person's house that's burning, it's on fire, and you look and everyone in the community is saying, firefighters, spray everybody's house. Everybody's house matters. But it's like, bruh, that person's house, the only person whose house is on fire right now is the one who needs the water. Everybody's house doesn't need the water right now. The only person who needs the water is the person whose house is on fire. Why are we so worried and so bent up on wanting to be included in everything when the issue is this particular person, this particular thing? We as a people are hardwired to see issues and fix them. But for some reason, when it comes to race in America in particular, but also everywhere else, when we try to bring up black lives and try to bring up the fact that things are so atrocious compared to other races, it seems as though it gets lost in this shuffle of, but all lives matter. Or take it a step further, blue lives matter. Like, bruh, we're not saying that cops don't matter. We're not saying that white people don't matter. We're not saying any of that. What we're saying is blacks are being unfairly treated by so many different systems that are in place that are disadvantageous to us. And so if we would focus on fixing that, we would maybe get to a place where we can say that we're on equal footing with one another. Just like, how the feminists are saying we want to be on equal footing. We're not saying that we're better than men. Arguments can be made depending upon circumstance, but that's another argument for another day. But what we're saying is we just want to be on equal footing. We just want to be treated the same. We just want to be treated equal. It's the same thing with race relations. We just want to be treated as equals. That, maybe we don't get judged by the color of our skin, but the content of our heart, the way, Martin Luther King, wanted it to be. And so, again, when it comes to, these systems that are in place, it's a matter of us recognizing that the systems that are in place will either be advantageous to us or disadvantageous to us. It's a sad day when, as a black person, my wife was driving this past weekend on the street, and a cop was following her. Not well, and I'm saying I don't mean following her like stalking her, but they were going in the same direction, and the cop was behind her. And she said that she felt so afraid, tense. Make sure I got my hands on the steering wheel right. Make sure I'm watching the road right. Make sure I'm following the speed limit right. Make sure I'm doing everything I'm supposed to do right. We shouldn't have to feel like that. You know, if we're driving the speed limit, we're singing songs, we're, doing what we do. The cop pulls up behind us just in the flow of traffic. We shouldn't be afraid that they're going to look at us and decide, I want to pull y'all over, because y'all are doing something suspicious to me. And it lead into something that's far more, egregious than anything we could ever experience in our lives. But that's the reality that a lot of us live in every single day, just by virtue of being black. Like, oh my gosh. I remember when I went to the bank one time and I wanted a loan from the bank, and I got all dressed up because I didn't want them to see my skin. I didn't want them to see this. I wanted them to see me as I have money, I have a good credit score, I'm a good person, I'm about my business, and I just want a loan to be able to do what I need to do. I shouldn't have to worry. It shouldn't matter whether I'm dressed up in my gym clothes or if I'm, in a 5-piece suit. If I have the credentials, I ought to be able to get what I need. So many times in so many situations where, I knew I needed to downplay my blackness to get whatever it was that I was trying to get at the time. And that's what we're talking about. Like, the systems are not designed with us in mind. And we're not asking to be superior. You do have some groups that are. This is not that. But we're not asking to be superior to whites when we say Black Lives Matter. When we talk about the systems and we talk about white privilege, we're just simply saying that there are these systems, these invisible systems that have been designed for whites in mind at the disadvantage of blacks and other people of color. And once we all understand the systems, we can either continue to play in them or dismantle them. And that's what the protests are about. That's what the burning down of the buildings are about. That's what, the rioting is about, for the most part. Again, I have my own thoughts on some of the riots. I think some of y'all is playing to be playing and need to stop. But that's neither here nor there. There's a why behind the what. These things are happening because there's a bunch of systems that have been running amok for a while now. And finally, we have a chance to shine some light on this stuff. And so, so I'm grateful that there are people now on the other side who we've been asking for years, please come join us in this fight. See things from our perspective. Hear us out. Hear what we have to say. And just listen to us. Just hear us out. And I'm grateful that we're at a place now where that's actually happening. A little bit more so than it had in the past. And so I say all that to kind of wrap it up like this. At least this first part anyway. I've just been so grateful to see what I've seen, and particularly in this puzzling community. But I'm going to scale it back and then bring it back. So many actors and actresses, so many entertainers, people that I've grown up watching on TV. First time I'm ever seeing them say anything on this level, on this magnitude, participating, getting involved, sharing knowledge, sharing stuff that, I haven't even looked up, and they've got extensive research on things. And I'm just like, I was just blown away. Within my own puzzling community, man, listen, y'all, it's no secret or surprise. I'm kind of an odd man out in this puzzling community. But to see so many of y'all, like, just join in the fight and want to know more and want to understand your role and what you can do to be a part of the solution. Like I was telling my friend earlier today, like I've just been so overwhelmed. Like I was so overwhelmed coming home that I needed to take a nap. I just couldn't take it because I'm just so full of hope and so full of, joy, recognizing that it is possible this time that change can take place. I guess I can't say it enough that it just makes me so freaking happy to see that so many people care about me, let alone others. Like I know y'all care. Like I've never questioned anybody who has spent any amount of time with me. 600 hours of puzzle, for example, like we spent so much time talking about puzzles and stuff. And we've been through some stuff together. I know you care about me. Puzzle problem, puzzle pastime, business puzzles, like the list goes on and on. Like I know y'all care about me. So it's never been a question of, do you care or not? It's like it's never been an issue. But I've always been apprehensive about bringing up stuff like this with my puzzling community because I'm an odd man out for the most part, because you ain't gonna see a whole lot of brothers puzzling on a regular basis. Like I know there's a few of us out there, but I ain't too many of us out there. And so again, to see y'all care and ask me if I'm okay, and to open up your hearts to me and say, if you need to talk, I'm here. If you need to vent, I'm here. If you need to figure this out, I'm here. Like, I can't express enough how much joy that has brought to my heart. And I'm fighting back tears even now just thinking about it, because it's like, for the first time in a long time, I don't feel black in terms of like feeling like an odd man out, or feel like I'm having to subdue or having to play back or having to down, play or anything along those lines. Like I've been given the space to feel. And I promise y'all, like, I'm scared, I'm bitter, I'm enraged, I'm sad. Sometimes I do feel lonely, because I know at any given moment it could be me. For no other, oh my God, like, I ride my bicycle in my neighborhood. It could be me one day. A cop pull me over because I fit the description. And it could be me. On somebody's webcast or somebody's, news article or, newscast. And my wife, she got pulled. She was scared she's gonna get pulled over last week. And my kids, man, like I'm scared. I'm scared. I'm torn. I'm bitter. I'm afraid a lot. And yet, y'all have basically told me it's okay to feel all of that. And what can we do to help? And I'm just grateful to all of y'all for allowing me the space to be me. All of me. And so, thank y'all so much for your love, for your concern, for your care. for your comfort, for your anger, your frustration, for you saying I'm ignorant to the situation. Help me understand. What can I do? All of that, because y'all have no idea how much that means to me.